Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Dadas Show, coming to you straight from the Boma Hotel here in Nairobi. Health and well-being are closely interrelated to power. This means that a major key to women's empowerment means taking charge in our reproductive decision making. Family planning and contraception has been a discussion since time immemorial, and most of the time it is littered with myths, propaganda, and stereotype. Today, we shall have an opportunity to debunk some of those myths, some of the propaganda out there that is hindering our sisters, our dadas, from making educated family planning and contraceptive decisions in their life. So joining me, I'm joined with a panel of industry experts who will get to meet them after we view the next feature. Of course, we encourage you at home to take part in today's conversation. Give us your input, your suggestions, and anything that you may feel will contribute to the well-being of our sisters by and large. Of course, interact with us on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1. As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Before we dive right in, let's take a look at the following feature.
Kenya's uptake on family planning among women of reproductive age has recorded an improvement by 52%, representing 5.2 million women using modern methods. This is according to a report released by Ministry of Health in September 2022. In addition, the government has allocated 1.19 billion shillings for family planning commodities in the 2022-2023 financial year. Family planning methods available in the country are categorized as long-term and short-term contraceptives.
There are quite a number of family planning methods that women can choose from, and it can be either you want it long-term or short-term, and we also categorize them as hormonal or non-hormonal. The copper is a small plastic that contains copper ions that is inserted into the woman's womb. It can stay between 5 to 10 years. Depending on the type, and it's mostly for those who feel like it's a nuisance to take the pills every day. And it offers a very long-term method. Its effectiveness is very high actually. The failure rate is very low. In 100 women, one get pregnant in 1 year. If 100 women are using it, one will get pregnant. Less than one will get pregnant in 1 year. This is less than 99. This is more than 99% effective. Other method is the combined pills. These pills contain two hormones, the progesterone and the estrogen. It's a pill that you have to take every day and break for a week for the bleeding. We also have the mini pill. This is the one that has only one hormone, the progesterone. And this is used, it's the same as the combined pill, you have to take it every day. For this, you don't interrupt, you continuously take it, you don't break to bleed. It's mostly for people who cannot use the estrogen, and mostly it's been for women who just given birth, who are breastfeeding, because the estrogen can lower your milk level, so we recommend the progesterone. Okay, we have the ring. The ring is a small plastic vaginal ring that you put into the vagina. It secretes progesterone and estrogen hormones, the same hormones that we have in our bodies. It's very easy to use. There's no particular way that you just need to be in a comfortable position to insert it. You can use one in 3 weeks. One in 3 weeks, and leave the last week to bleed. We also have the fertility awareness, also known as the natural family planning methods. This is where you time your ovulation. You time your ovulation and predict when pregnancy is likely to occur, and you also observe other symptoms like the body temperatures and the thickness of your vaginal fluid. In every 100 women using the natural family planning, 25 would get pregnant in a year. So clearly this is not a very effective method. However, you get to learn your body, you get to learn your cycle, and it's acceptable in most religions and cultures We also have the condom. The condom is the only method that prevents pregnancy and STIs at the same time. We have two types of condom. We have the male condom and the female condom, made of a thin latex. And the most important about the male condom is you have to get the right size so that it does not slip out or break during sex. It's entirely, that is not hormonal. Is cost effective, we would say.
Emergency contraceptive P2 has been abused over the years as ladies use it as regular contraceptive instead of taking it once a year in cases of emergency.
Circumstances, the P2 is originally supposed to be used as an emergency contraceptive. It's not supposed to be used as a regular contraceptive, which most of our young girls are getting it confused. The hormones in postnatal, they're very high. For example, in a case of an emergency and we do not have postnatal, we can tell you to take a whole pack of this that you're supposed to take in a month at once. So this tells you how much of the hormones that you ingest in one dose.
As the push for enhanced uptake of contraceptive intensify, experts have warned Kenyans against taking family planning commodities that have not been approved and registered by pharmacies and poison board.
Comment on the herbs is I would highly discourage. Anything that you cannot quantify what is in it, avoid it. The fact that it does not come with a leaflet telling you this is what is in it, this amount of estrogen or progesterone in it, you really don't know what harm it can do to you. Yes, and these are the effects that we can have. You don't know how long this effect will be in your body in years to come.
Selling contraceptive pills under the name of Chinese herbal pills, where a woman takes 1 tablet a month. It contains very, very high levels of estrogen and progesterone that are toxic. When that tablet fails, which is most of the times, you see children born and they experience a lot of effects from what their mother took.
Welcome back. So joining me today, as I mentioned, I am joined with industry experts who will go a long way today in debunking some of those myths. So right next to me is Dr. Nelly Bosire, who is a gynecologist and of course a woman. So she'll give us the insight of everything that we need to know today. And right next to her, we have Nurse Julie Obu, who has more than 15 years, I think it's 18 years exactly, experience as a nurse practitioner, pardon that, and I believe we are in the best of hands. Of course, joining me is a wonderful, very, very diverse audience who we will be interacting with as we keep on going in the course of the show. I want to thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to join me on the Dadas show today. So to get the ball rolling, I'll start off with you, Dr. Bosire. We are talking about family planning and contraception, contraceptives actually. So what is the difference between family planning and contraceptive?
Well, essentially, family planning is the process of deciding how, when to have a family, how many children you want to have, and how, at what point in your life you want to do that. However, contraceptives are actually medical devices and commodities that we use to be able to prevent conception. So the contraceptive becomes a means to achieving family planning, but also becomes the same commodity that you would use for somebody whose intention is not about family.
Okay, so what would be, still on you, Dr. what would be some of the factors that women should take into consideration when picking the type of contraceptive?
Oh, well, okay, so There is no one size fits all. Just like you and I don't have the same fashion sense or the same hairstyle or do our makeup differently, the same applies to contraception. So there is no such thing as a good contraceptive or a not good contraceptive. Every contraceptive is individualized to the person who is going to use it. So broadly, we classify the contraceptives into hormonal contraceptives and non-hormonal contraceptives. And that then becomes a basis for those who may not be able to use a hormonal contraceptive, then they have the option of using a non-hormonal contraceptive. For those who can take hormonal contraceptives, there are also different types. And we usually say our hormonal contraceptives are based on the same hormones the body makes. It's just that we synthetically manufacture them and then use them to manipulate the body's system to prevent ovulation. So we have two broad classifications for those. We either have what we call progesterone-based contraceptives, and these ones give us the widest array of contraceptives that people know about, from pills to injections to the implants that we have, and now to a hormonal-based intrauterine system. Then we have the combination contraceptive that puts together progesterone combined with estrogen, and together then we have them prepared as either daily pills. Now we have a skin patch, and in Kenya we don't have this yet, but it is now approved in the US, what we call the vaginal ring. Now the combined contraceptive tends to mimic the body's functionality the closest. So it's also the reason why sometimes we may step outside need for contraceptive and use it for hormone regulation for those who may have problems with their hormones, because it makes the cycle very on point. 28 days reduces pain, reduces, so there are many reasons why we would use it, not just for contraceptive purposes. So then understanding this means that the woman is then classified according to what can she tolerate, what can't she. For instance, if you have terrible memory, it doesn't make sense to put you on a pill. You are definitely going to forget to swallow it every day at the time when it's supposed to be taken. So you are more likely to work best with something that does not depend on you to work.
Yes.
If you are just planning contraception for 3 months, because after 3 months you finished your exams and now you're ready to have a child, then it doesn't make sense to put you on a 5-year method.
Absolutely.
It's not cost effective and not reasonable. So then we want a shorter term method. So a lot of the times you'll see when you go to clinic, they'll ask you, do you want a short term method? Do you want a long term method? How long do you want before you conceive your next child? So all that matters. We have issues that are medical. There are certain contraceptives that you cannot use on certain people. For instance, hypertension. People who have hypertensive may not do so well with hormonal contraceptives and are more likely to require non-hormonal contraceptives. Others, you may have to change the method based on the kind of side effects they get and how those side effects affect their overall well-being. Others, you may choose a specific contraceptive because other than just wanting to not get pregnant, they have additional problems, and a specific one might be best suited to manage both, so that you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So there is a huge variety, and that's why we say it's not a decision you make on the street. You need to go in, sit with your medical practitioner or your nurse practitioner. They walk you through the different types. You understand what best works for you. Eliminate certain risk factors you may have that do not allow you to use certain methods. Before then, you can make an informed choice on what you want to use.
Wow, that's very well put, Dr. Bosire. Nurse Julie, what are some of the, like we've already talked about some of the myths and stereotypes. I know I've had my fair share of the stereotypes in regards to contraceptive, in regards to family planning. Oh, hii sijui inaleta cancer. Oh, hii sijui inafanya nini. So what are some of the myths that you have had as you interact with patients on a day-to-day basis, and what would be your message to our viewers at home who have also interacted with the same stereotypes?
Thank you very much. As a nurse, you are the first contact with the patient, so most of the time you're the person who will handle this patient first before you refer to the doctor. Yes. So most of the time before a patient comes for a certain method, she will meet you as a first contact. When they come, some of them have already stereotypes or myths that they believe if they get the contraceptive, the method, it will affect them. They will unleash you as a caregiver first, tell you this and this, I've heard about this and this regarding these methods, and I really want that method. Can you explain to us what can I do? Can I use this method or not? So most patients come to us and say, I had probably the pill. If I take a pill, you can get cancer. Some say that if I'm an older woman, older women cannot use contraceptives. It depends at which age you are, because at times you are at 40 and you're still ovulating, you're still having your menses. If you don't use the contraceptive methods, definitely you will get pregnant, isn't it? And that is the time when you wanted to control. Probably you are up and about, you've told yourself, now my family is done. I have an adequate family size that I wanted. But now somebody somewhere told you because you are older, you cannot get pregnant. So it's not necessary to use a method. So some of them even come and tell us if you use a method like the pill, if you use a pill, you will it works instantly. That's a myth. Yeah, pills sometimes work after 5 days, depending on the type of cycle, where you are at your cycle. So the best thing we advise them is you get that pill, take like 5 days. Within that period, if you have sex, then you are safe. So there are several myths that we can discuss here, but we'll see, due to the time, I think we'll get to talk about the ones they believe that the contraceptives cause cancer. Others think older women cannot use contraceptives. Others think that using like a birth pill, you get to you're safe immediately. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So still on you, Nas, you've talked about the pill, you've talked about, so what are some of the most common types of the contraceptives that we have out there, and what is the eligibility of the people, you know, because that is a conversation that has been going on, and I believe, Dr. you can jump in as well. That has been a conversation that has been happening a lot when there has been talk about introducing contraceptives to girls in high school. What is normally the eligibility for a woman, and this could be a young woman, an old woman, to take contraception?
Okay, we have so many types of contraceptives that we have. Some are barrier methods that are readily available in our health facilities. You'll get them placed in strategic points whereby someone can get them easily. Some of them are hormonal, as the doctor has talked about. The hormonal ones are pills. We have combined oral contraceptives, and we also have the ones that are progesterone based. So you'll be advised by your caregiver which one is best for you at what moment. And then there are other methods like mechanical methods. You have IUCD, which is inserted inside your it's inserted, and it is a mechanical barrier. And so with all those methods, including surgical methods, you'll get that when you get to your doctor. The doctor is the one who will advise you on which method to use. As a nurse, first incidence, as I said, most patients get the nurse first. So depending on the facility you are in, the nurse might advise you on which contraceptive to use, or refer you to the gynecologist who will advise you on which contraceptive to use. Most available are the barrier methods outside. Oral contraceptives are available. For surgical procedures, you must get to a health facility which has a surgical unit that you go, for both men and women, that you'll go to for you to get that service. You cannot do it just anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let them not think, you know, those are some of the conversations that we are having. And I always like using the term that common knowledge is not common to all. Yeah? So someone may think just because they have been able to get the IUD or the uterine, even the process of maybe putting it in, they did a medical practitioner did that, but now removing it, they attempt to remove it on their own. So that is the basis of the show. Now, we were talking about eligibility, you know, so we've already said it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Absolutely.
But let's look at the age factor. Of course, this is a conversation that is still being discussed. We have very varied opinions, obviously, from the general public, from the clergy, from everybody has an opinion about this. But from a medical standpoint, which I think half of the time or most of the time is the best area to fall back on. What is the best age for a woman to start taking contraception?
Well, it's not about the age, it's about sexual activity. Debate has not been about whether adolescents can take contraceptives or not. The debate is truly that are adolescents eligible to consent to sex? Okay, and as per our law, age of sexual consent is 18. So when they then have sex below the age of 18, they put us in a very difficult position. It's not just a conversation between the child and the doctor or the nurse. It's a conversation between the child, the parent, and the nurse. So what the law is now stating that access to contraception, as you rightly say, is a medical procedure. And therefore, the same way you need consent to treat a child for malaria, for appendix, for whatever, is the same way you need consent for them to be put on contraceptives. But we do understand it's a social problem and that a lot of children who are having sex, their parents are not aware. And even when they are aware, they're of course not condoning it. So then becomes a catch-22. You know, it's the horse before the cat or the cat before the horse. We don't know. So it's really not something we can be able to resolve as straightforward. As a society, we need to understand it then steps outside of medicine because you will have a very strictly religious parent who does not understand why their child should be on a contraceptive. But on the other hand, when she comes with baby number 3 and she's 15, then what's the conversation?
Yeah.
So we do have to think about it broadly. And as we speak, actually, currently, the Ministry of Health is actually in the process of reviewing the adolescent sexual and reproductive health guidelines. That's what guides us, depending on what we put down on paper. So we do need them to be very, very practical. We also have a challenge in this country that according to our laws, we have never defined somebody called an emancipated minor.
Yes.
An emancipated minor internationally is recognized as a child below the age of 18, but who by virtue of being in certain circumstances essentially earn the right to take adult level decisions. So if you're a child who already has a child, you are actually an emancipated minor, and in ideal circumstances, that person is eligible to take a decision whether they can take contraceptives or not. Yeah. But our laws have not accounted for that, and so a lot of the times health workers are in a very difficult situation. But outside of that, really, the eligibility to take a contraceptive is based on whether you're sexually active or not. And once you are sexually active, then you know you need a contraceptive. Actually, it's supposed to be the other way around. As you aspire to be sexually active,
that's actually where my thinking was
absolutely
at, you know, we're taking the preventive,
absolutely,
the preventive measures as opposed to when everything has sort of, you know, gone haywire, is when you're running around and, you know, like actually like what Nurse Julie said about someone starting to take the everyday pill after they've just had sex, and now they're expecting that there's no way I can get, you know, pregnant. Actually, now, Nurse Julie, back on you. When we look at dissemination of information, and sometimes I do believe that part of the rise and the need for all the stereotypes and the propaganda around contraception and family planning is sometimes just lack of adequate information. Do you feel like, for instance, the government, the Ministry of Health, has done enough to ensure that information has been disseminated on contraceptives and family planning across all corners of the country? Because here we are, we live in Nairobi, we can access a clinic. But what about a lady who is in Lodwar? What about a girl who is in Mandera? Do you feel like the government has done enough in the projects and the policies that have been put in place to ensure that everybody has information and awareness on this?
Oh yes, the government has done a lot, but still not yet there. Because most of the health facility, government health facilities has very less workers. They're understaffed. So you get to a place like Mandela, there's one nurse who is handling over 80 patients. So she doesn't have that time to go to the people, to clients who have come and give health talks as it's required. Sit down with these people, tell them about the health challenges that you are having. If it's about contraception, which contraceptions, how to take or incorporate in your life the contraceptions. So the issue of less employees in our health facilities has made it a challenge. So the government is not able to reach out to everybody, because essentially the nurse has to give a health talk before she handles all the patients. But what is your priority? Will you handle a patient who has come here bleeding, or start giving health talks to the other group of your teenagers? So that is where we failed, because of lack of staff.
Adequate staff.
Yes, adequate staff.
Yes, yes.
Maybe if
Doctor,
I would say, this is not just a responsibility we apportion government.
Yes.
This is all of us. So it's not, I mean, I have to applaud this government, because one thing we have consistently had in Kenya is a family planning policy. Yes. We've always had one. It's reviewed periodically. The next review for the existing one is actually on the way, and it's been very supported. Contraceptives in Kenya have actually been provided for free by government in all public facilities across the board. People don't have to pay for those. So in that respect, the government has done its job.
Sure.
In terms of information dissemination, there is a lot that has gone into primary health care, recruitment of community health volunteers, who are actually the people who reach out in the communities and have conversations with people about health, and specifically about reproductive health and contraceptives. So on that aspect, there's a lot. But we do have to look at who is our target audience listening to right now. You're here, we're having this conversation. You as media are playing your role, but we also haven't fully exploited the role of social media. And we do know right now that a lot of people prefer to have these conversations on social media. I mean, if you're going to put something out on social media, there's an age population, that quickly it will go out there. We know that our young people are more interested in what influencers, for instance, have to say. How have we piggybacked on that to be able to adequately disseminate not just information, but correct information? Because where we are right now, the battle we have with a lot of our influencers is giving misinformation, but they are the people choose to listen to because they appeal to them better. So we do have to step up and figure out, as the health professional, how can we do a little better and be able to say we are not just disseminating information, but it's actually the correct information. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. I think that is a perfect way to end this particular session of the Dadas show. That responsibility is, the back falls back on all of us. What role are you playing? Are you disseminating not just information, like Dr. said, but correct information? How are we piggybacking on some of the influences? At the end of the day, the target market, my main takeaway is the target market is very key. What are they consuming, and how can we pass this message through that? So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back for the question and answer session. Welcome back to the Dadas show. We are rolling into my favorite segment of the show, which is the question and answer session. As always, we encourage you at home to keep this conversation going on all our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 TV. It could be about today's topic, any questions you may have, feedback, and any encouraging words that you may have for our panelists and our audience at large. To start us off on the question and answer session, we have Mr. Caleb, who is a he for she. Karibu sana, Caleb.
Thank you so much. My question will be directed to Daktari, and I will want to ask this. What is the interrelationship between the law governing issues to do with family planning and the morality rate, especially on the adolescents in our primary and secondary schools, and what do you think the ministry and the government needs to do so that we can curb the challenges that come together with this? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caleb. That's a wonderful question. You know, what is the interrelationship between the two? The next question we have from Hannah.
Thank you very much. My question is to Daktari as well. And the question is, we've heard of situations whereby certain parents are taking their adolescent children to receive the contraceptives. And my question would be, how exactly, or rather, how would you, what are the actions, or rather, how would you talk to these parents, or what is the advice that you would give these parents as they take to do that, basically, yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and karibu sana to the Dadas show. I think this one will give the opportunity to Daktari to answer the questions.
Okay. Thank you, Caleb. That is actually an important question. And I think one thing we really have to understand is that one cannot legislate morality. Morality is a personal choice. The decisions people make regarding, or even how we define morality is very individualized. It's really a product of your social upbringing, how you were socialized, what culture you've grown up in, what background you have come from, and it then informs how you take decisions. So from the health perspective, we do not look at you whether you are a moral or immoral person. We look at you as a person who's come to us with a need. And what's your need, and how do we fulfill it? So it's a very individualized decision, and as doctors, we are actually sworn to not discriminate our patients, including whether our opinions differ or not. So that is not something we can legislate. And I do not even think that has ever come up in legislation, because as a country, we're not, our government is not based on religion. So what we then say is, whoever is coming to you, whether you are a married couple that just is planning to wed next week and you're coming for your contraceptive options, or you're a 27-year-old single person who is dating even multiple partners, my job is to look at you as a person who requires reproductive health services, and I provide those. What we know is that we do not we do not isolate the need for contraceptives away from overall reproductive health. So then, if I think you're a high-risk patient, I do have to have a conversation about your risk profile. That if you do have multiple sexual partners, you do have an increased risk of getting, let's say, a sexually transmitted infection, or you're at a higher risk of developing cervical cancer. So can we have conversations about how we prevent those, and not only just restricted to what are your contraceptive needs?
Most of the young generation, or the people who we give services, some of them believe that contraceptives can prevent sexually transmitted infections. Mm-hmm. That is not right. So we need to know which kind of contraceptive we want to use, and the benefits. Are the benefits outweighing the risks? That will help us a lot. So not all contraceptives prevent sexually transmitted infections. Not that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. By the way, Nurse Julie, that is actually very key. And I believe that is some of the myths. I think we need to be ticking when we go to a myth, because there has always been talk about, this contraception is always going to spread the infection and the spread of STIs and HIV and AIDS, which is not true. So certain contraceptives, like, you know, may not serve that particular purpose. So it's always important to actually consult a medical practitioner when you come to getting, you know, when you're choosing your type of contraception. There was a question from Hannah in regards to the parents. When the parent is coming to take the child, you know, what does the process look like, and what would you advise maybe perhaps a parent who also falls under the whole cluster of feeling, am I sending my child off to the dogs? Am I being too woke? You know, what is the kind of advice that you would give to parents who have perhaps adolescents, you know, adolescent children? Let's start off with you, Dr.
So obviously, there's no parent who wakes up and decides, I think my child should have sex.
Oh, gosh.
So by the time a parent is taking a decision to bring an adolescent child to you, you can bet they are at the end of their rope. So they are not looking for judgment. They are looking for support. And that's a conversation that now you want to have. Sometimes you may actually need to refer this child to therapy, because they may just be doing this rebelliously because they're struggling with something different. Sometimes that's the entryway into the care system, where we actually find out that this child is sexually abused at home and might even be by somebody known to them. So it's not just to look at the parent that, how could you do this, or why would you want your 15-year-old to be on a contraceptive? You must have a deeper look at that, must explore the entire situation, find out the why. Why is a child below the age of 18 having sex? And when you address that, then you have actually given a wholesome solution. So it's not just the one-off. You're not going to say there is a one-size-fits-all, as again I have said. Sometimes we actually ask the parent to step out and we talk to the child. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people think that children are having sex with older people. Yes, for those who are in sexual exploitation situations, where we're having sex for pads, sex for money, sex for, you know, that is a practice. But actually, majority of adolescents are just having sex with fellow adolescents. And we do have to accept that when we think that sex is only good for 18-year-olds and above, sex is good, period. It is a good feeling. It is why people don't wake up to struggle to go and do something that does not bring them some sort of gratification. So we must accept that even those adolescents are seeking gratification. They are not going to feel it different from the adult. So then our focus should be on figuring out how to delay the onset of needing this level of gratification. And in so doing, understanding that an adolescent, the reason we have a cutoff of 18 is that below 18, they may not necessarily, not that they're not ready to handle the sex. By the way, that's a physiologic process. They are ready to handle the sex. They're not ready to handle the emotional and psychological aspect
that comes along with, of course, having
it is why we try to protect them, to grow up enough to understand the whole impact of this journey. So it's not about that, are they too young to have sex? Once you hit adolescence, your hormones tell you differently.
Your body dictates.
Absolutely. And so you're fighting against nature.
You're fighting against nature. And I think that's a very good point to move on to the next question, which is we do need, and I always advocate that for the show, to have open conversations, to stop burying our heads in the sand. We do the body, like she said, the body, they're fighting against the body. These are things that we all went through, you know. So can we address, can our response be better? Can we do better, especially in handling such cases? So the whole thing about demonizing and, you know, parents who are looking for contraception, or children who want to talk about sex, children who are engaging in sex, we do need to have these conversations so that we can be able to protect them. And in lieu of everything that is happening currently with the different myths and propagandas about what pill does what, I think the conversation is it's needed, and it's needed now. So the next question is coming from Judy. Karibu sana, Judy.
Thank you so much, Ashiko. My name is Judy Oyo, former President, Kiriri Women's University and KUSO PWD Chair. So my question is, what is the duration that somebody is required to take P2? You know, you find a lot of university students accessing P2 very easily. So what is the limitation of the duration that they should be taking after they should be considering while taking P2? And do taking contraceptive lead to fungal infection? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Judy. That is a wonderful question, and I believe you have addressed an issue that has been coming up a lot with the intake and the abuse of the postnatal pill, which is the morning after pill. How often should it be taken? What are its limitations? And of course, what are the pros and the cons of the morning after pill? The next question is coming from Faith.
My name is Faith Khan. And my question goes to, I think, both of them, doctor and nurse. So my question is, under which circumstance can one be barred from family planning, from taking contraceptives? And in that case, how can you convince the person, now the partner, to go for vasectomy? And does vasectomy, can it be reversed? Like after vasectomy, can you get a child or go back to your normal life? Thank you.
Okay, so the first question, thank you, Faith. The first question about the limitations of the postnatal, I'd like Dr. to take that, and then we can look at some of the limitations of contraceptive. When is it dangerous for a person, and when can the other partner be forced to actually, not forced, but say be coerced into taking part in this particular decision. So we'll start off with the postnatal discussion now, Dr. KBC.
Okay, so essentially, frequency of taking the emergency pill is an indication of irresponsibility on your part, in the sense that you do acknowledge that you do need a contraceptive, and it's called emergency for a reason. So one of the biggest side effects of the emergency pill is the high failure rate. It actually does have a very high failure rate of more than 20%. So if you're looking at 100 women taking the emergency pill today, 20 of them are surely going to get pregnant. So that then doesn't make it the most appealing method to use. And we always say, if you've had to use an emergency pill more than 4 times in 12-month period, you do need to get on a contraceptive. It's really that simple. I get very amazed that people think that it's a safer, if I would say safer in quotes, contraceptive to use. The emergency pill, those 2 small pills are the equivalent of 24 pills for the daily pill. So you literally took all 24 and stuffed them down your mouth in one day.
Dear.
So I don't know how you think that is any safer.
That's bound to shock anyone.
And, and the most interesting thing is that then they do this weekend after weekend. I call it the Dunda weekend. So you take it, you go out on Friday, or you have an oops, then you take it on Saturday morning, you're back out on Saturday night, and you take it on Sunday morning, and then all the way.
I think you take the first one and then you wait for 12 hours or something.
Yep.
So now if you're popping them the whole weekend, you're taking 6 of them.
So you have literally taken 6 months worth of contraceptives in one weekend. It really does not make any scientific sense. It's an emergency pill for a reason. And we say, if you really need to be honest with yourself, and we always, as part of women empowerment, you don't wake up and have sex and then think about not getting pregnant. It means you're not empowered. You're not taking care of your body. You're not taking primary responsibility of the thing that you primarily own, that someone else cannot take away from you. So if you're going to be sexually active, then you should be on a contraceptive. And you should have had this conversation way before you hit the club that day. So that is responsibility. I see a lot of people say, oh, I just broke up with my boyfriend, now I don't need a contraceptive. And I'm like, that's fine, I accept. Are you saying that over the next 6 months you're not going to have sex? And then they rethink the conversation because next weekend they're going to be looking for consolation sex, and then we are back to square one. You understand? Or revenge sex or whatever sex. So no, we really do have to think about it, because thinking about it like that also makes you take a moment and say, do I really want to have sex with this person? Do I want to have sex now? Am I ready? Am I in the right frame of mind to want to have sex to begin with? And so is this necessary? But where you can check all those boxes, what I would say is you should not be taking P2. So generally, yes, it is allowed to use P2. It does have a lot of side effects. The spacing of 12 hours is really to try and minimize the side effects. Most people will actually throw it up because very high progesterones do really trigger bad nausea. So then part of the reason why, again, it also fails. So it's really encouraged that, well, we understand if you have to take it once, twice, thrice, but really by the time you're at number 4, you need to think about having a more stable form of contraceptives that would have lesser side effects and a higher safety profile, and obviously a better result. Remember, there is no contraceptive that is foolproof. Nothing, not even your tubal ligation or your vasectomy is 100%. Okay, so what we basically do is to try to aim towards above 99%.
Yeah. The next question was coming, I believe, from Faith, who was asking, where does the intervention come in? What are some of the the scenarios where intervention is needed, especially in a couple? Where the woman cannot be able to take contraceptive. I don't know if there's one size fits all that, she cannot, she's barred from everything, but, what are some of the situations where a woman is completely prohibited from taking contraception?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. We have said that family planning is a family issue. It's not an issue that a decision that one person should take. So the woman and the man has to take responsibility in planning what size of children they do have. So in this case where a woman is not able to take a family planning method, we need to involve the man. And there are several methods the man can use. We have the barrier methods, they can use the condoms. Or we have vasectomy, which can be done for the man. And this is likely when a woman has some medical conditions that doesn't warrant her to take a certain method. Or rather, these methods, she might be using a certain method and it has adverse side effects. And then we advise the man to step in and be part of this process. So, for instance, a woman who has a DVT or DVT is deep venous thrombosis, and these are blood clots and probably is on blood thinners which she's taking. And now this is an adverse condition whereby she's not able to use certain family planning methods. If the man is cooperative enough, he needs to be part of the family planning, whereby we advise them to use either the barrier methods or do a vasectomy. Back to the doctor, most probably to elaborate.
Yeah. Yes, Dr.
I think she started on the point. There is no such thing as contraception for one. Okay. And I actually love it when I see couples coming into the clinic and say, okay, so what options do we have as a group? It's not supposed to be an individual's decision. But we also do pay attention to the fact that not everybody who wants contraception is coupled. So, of course, everyone is empowered. What we hardly ever see is men stepping up and saying, I don't have a partner, but I want a contraceptive for me. And I do say that...
I don't think I've ever had anything like that. You're giving me news.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are the conversations we need to have, because it takes two people to make a baby. Yes. So really, if no one wants to become a father, then they do have to think about what else to do. So what we are having a challenge is actually finding effective. It's not that the science is not ongoing. And I'm sure we will have breakthroughs. We have had a few male contraceptives that have been piloted. The challenge is looking at how the male reproductive system works. It's very difficult to bring in a hormonal contraceptive the way it is as easy for women. Because remember, women, we go through a cycle. for us to be able to ovulate one egg in one cycle. Men produce millions of sperm every day. So if you're going to interfere with sperm production, it also a lot of the times end up interfering with performance too. So until we have that magical wand that can actually allow them to be able to perform sexually without interference, and at the same time be able to stop production of sperm for the duration, we are still stuck with the two. We're either using a condom or we're having vasectomy. And you'd be surprised, men just don't talk about vasectomy, but it's a lot more common than is actually thought to be. Because they go quietly, they have their vasectomies. Remember, the vasectomies are a 15-minute office procedure. They don't even need a surgical theater, so it's cheap. It's easily done without a lot of interference. They walk in and tomorrow they walk out and they're good to go about their business. Tomorrow they'll be in office like nothing happened. So we may actually not know when they're having these vasectomies, but they are actually a lot more than the less than 1% that is documented. So what are the situations? Medical issues, as she has said. Sometimes a patient cannot tolerate any form of hormonal contraceptive.
Yes.
Remember what I said. It doesn't matter whether it's coming as a pill or an implant or whatever. It's the same hormone. The different methods are just how it's delivered into the body. So if you cannot take pills, you're likely not to be able to stand a patch. Absolutely. If you cannot take the 3-monthly injection, the same hormone is the same one in a 5-year implant. So you still can't use that either. So once somebody is off all of those, and then maybe they cannot use the copper T method, because you're allergic to copper or you have heavy painful periods, and putting that in there makes that 10 times worse. So you do have to think outside the box. I've had a patient who after all that is still not even tolerant to surgical because she has a medical condition that makes her very high risk patient to take to surgery to be able to do a tubal ligation. So, you know, what happens? They come in, you have this conversation, and all the odds are stacked up against the wife, and the husband actually said he'll take one for the family. And he went ahead and had his vasectomy done. So it's not supposed to come from a point of coercion. It's actually, we are a team. What do we want out of our reproductive life? And then we look at it from that perspective. Have we attempted reversal? Yes, we have, for both women having tubal ligations and men having vasectomies. The success rate is terrible. And that's the reason why we usually say you really, really have to have your mind made up before you go for a permanent method of sterilization. So what option then do you have? Now we have the option of assisted reproductive technologies. So IVF becomes a more reliable, better successful way of getting pregnant rather than trying to reverse this vasectomy or the tubal ligation. It's just that, of course, it's very expensive, but even the surgery to reverse this is just as expensive. So the option is about choosing what's more likely to be successful. And we have had women who had tubal ligations in the past and actually successfully carry babies to term through IVF. We've had men who've had vasectomy. We harvest the sperm directly from the scrotum, and we actually manage to do in vitro fertilization, and the woman will be able to carry a baby. So you are not likely to hear people, even doctors talking about reversal procedures, because we know that the success rate is terrible. It's very, very poor.
Okay, thank you so much, Daktari. I think we're going to move on to the next question.
We are in the Cancer Awareness Month, and we have heard that many contraceptives are one of the risk factors mentioned as a cause for reproductive cancers, especially gynecological ones. Maybe if you could highlight some of them. You've just mentioned taking pills in a weekend like 60. That is too much. I'm sure it would be one of those that is causing hormonal imbalance. I think, I'm not sure. That's number one. The other one, in relation to the same, once now you have taken this and you get hormonal imbalance, to what extent does this cause fibroids and endometriosis and uterine cancers? Because those are the ones that are really killing the women. Sometimes not even cervix, it's from the uterus going down, and then now it causes also cervical cancer, other than the HPV virus. But as a risk factor, to what extent do contraceptives cause gynecological cancers, which are really the ones killing women more than even breast cancer?
Daktari, very, very briefly, let us check on Jane Francis' question. What is the link because that's also something that has been of concern.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously we talked about the 16 P2s in a week, and obviously that is bound to have a side effect. What is the link between
Actually,
you know, some of the medication and
allow me to take the opportunity to debunk that as myth number one.
Yes.
Contraceptives do not cause cancer. I think this is important for everyone to know. Actually, they protect against a lot of reproductive health cancers. Okay? We have had one of the risk factors for cervical cancer as multiple births. So the more children you have, the higher the risk of cervical cancer you have. So preventing you from having multiple babies actually becomes protective. And so when we look at a contraceptive like the combined contraceptive pill, which has been shown to have a slightly increased risk for causing cervical cancer, why are we still using it? Because the risk is far outweighed by the benefit. The risk of multiple babies compared to the risk of the contraceptive contributing to cervical cancer is much less. And that's the reason why we say you're better off using it than not using it. These contraceptives that we talk about, progesterone-based contraceptive, combined contraceptives, actually protect the uterine lining from increased risk of endometrial cancer in the long run. So there are actually advantages, not disadvantages. However, this may not apply to breast cancer, where any estrogen, progesterone containing contraceptives may increase the risk for certain people who are genetically predisposed. And this is why patients with breast cancer usually get screened for what we call hormone receptor positivity. If you carry the gene that gives you a specific receptor in your breast, then giving you a contraceptive increases the risk of breast cancer relapse once you've been diagnosed. That's why we say if a patient comes to you and they have a breast mass and we haven't diagnosed what this breast mass is, then you do not initiate them on hormonal contraceptives until you have a diagnosis. And that's why I was talking about combined services, that when you come for contraceptives, we don't just give you a contraceptive.
And tell you goodbye. It's a very involving
Absolutely.
process.
It's the opportunity to do a head-to-toe screening for us to medically assess whether you're eligible for it and treat any other things that we may diagnose along the line.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Bosire. We've come to the end of today's episode. I hope it's been as informative and as insightful and as educational as it has been for us here at the Boma Hotel. Family planning is a human right, and access to it is actually family planning is, and access to it is our human right. So, and it is very central in gender equality. So if we are pushing for gender equality, if we are pushing for female empowerment, then family planning has to be one of the factors that we take out. So take the step today, visit, your gynecologist, visit your nurse practitioner, and find out, be the one who is in control of your life. So on behalf of my production team and my fantastic location partners here at the Boma Hotel and KBC, we want to thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Dadas Show, and we will catch you next time, same place, same time, only on the Dadas Show. Bye-bye.